Hey traders, welcome to Charts and Coffee. Great to see everyone. Happy Wednesday. Hope everyone is doing well on this first trading week of the year. We have a lot that we have been processing in terms of, what are we going to be dealing with as we start 2023? And there's definitely a split between the fact that we know that rates look to be heading to that 5% area. We saw yesterday, and if you're wondering, Rob, what was that, weakness we saw? What was the market adjusting for in terms of equities and bonds? And most of what I saw was a pretty interesting evening out. And I'm going to show you how we can measure this because this is going to be so important as we go into not just May of this year, but going into the end of this year and into next in terms of where is the Fed taking rates. This column yesterday, for those of you that were in, we talked about this in the futures room, and most definitely during my macroeconomic weekly breakdown in the mastery, in the sector secrets mastery, these were even. The 5 to 5.25 was neck and neck with the 4.75 to 5%. And anytime we have movement to columns to the right on this graph, we are going to see equities weakness because that is a presumption of a higher target rate from the Federal Reserve. And that's a lot of what we saw to kick off yesterday's session. Interestingly enough, will we see a little bit of strength from equities? Well, we should, based on if we're looking at target rate probabilities influencing buying, because once again, the 4.75 to 5% has regained the lead, if you will. All right, and that's what I'm measuring. And by the way, gang, every one of the high impact releases, whether that be the ISM manufacturing PMI, big inflation number at 10 a.m., JOLTS job openings preempting tomorrow's ADP and Friday's NFP. Again, big number in terms of what's our expectation for employment. And then lastly, the FOMC meeting minutes, taking a look behind the curtain of what's being talked about and considered in front of that last decision on rates, which of course, as we know, was a hike. Every single one of these are difficult to read unless we have a measuring stick. And that measuring stick, gang, is this target rate probability. So hope that helps. I know a lot of you are finding a lot of clarity and simplicity in that understanding of macro. And it just works, right? It just works. Let's get to the questions, gang. As always, the show is about your questions. And the first one I see coming up, how do I treat hot zones for buy the dip swings? Well, first part is know that they're coming up, right? And the second part would be which time frame are we looking at? I don't know that I would always consider it by the dip. A lot of times when it comes to hot zones and intraday plays, I'll use my hourly price movement ranges. I'll use the volume levels. So it really depends on the structure of the symbol that I'm looking to trade. So that would have a lot to do with it. Buy the dip is one of many strategies we can use when the volatility and volume of that hot zone hit the market. But it really depends on the underlying structure. Do I not enter positions X days before one? No, I do not. Or do I care less for swings compared to day trading? Well, so if swing trading, let's define that as overnight positions on a daily time frame or a longer time frame, then the individual hot zones, to your point, aren't nearly as look. I'm gonna have to get through hot zones on a daily time frame, so they're not as important. But I just accept that as the path that I'm traveling down on a daily time frame. Intraday, it's a different approach. So I really care, to your point, intraday, because that's going to be the volatility I have to manage or even decide if I'm going to capitalize on it. And the daily, these are just sort of the events that are very normal to a position that could be open for days, if not weeks. All right. All right. Next up, let's see. Top spin, not consider weight and symbol, pure setup case. Okay. Double green. Yeah. All right. Which of the three top spin? It's a little cryptic. QSR. Okay. Let's just take a look at the symbols, because that part of your question I can actually understand. All right, so let's take a look at it. And I think you want me to actually compare some of these. That's no problem. No problem. I love that because the whole point is to look at relative strength. Now, I also saw you're not looking at the weighting. I'm not an advocate of that. I would want to know the relationship. QSR, consolidating, I would look for a breakout. ASO could be interesting. I would look to the long side on ASO. Let's see what we have here. ASO, I would hesitate to call it buy the dip, but I would say ASO would be more buy the dip friendly. And then SPG, I would focus perhaps on that Darvis level on SPG and that 200. All right. Okay, next up, KO in a daily uptrend with the 200. Yep, I like it. Absolutely, Kevin. Darvis and VWAP support. Absolutely. So VWAP, by the way, I've been getting this question, is when do I re-anchor those VWAPs? When do I re-anchor my V-score on the daily time frame? And the answer is not yet. I don't do that yet. I'll do that probably mid to late month. So I love that you're looking at the VWAP being above the 200, very bullish hemisphere in terms of that placement uptrend. Fantastic. Buy the dip, I would focus on that. I'm looking at my notes from yesterday's Sector Secrets PM session, and we are looking at XLP. And so this is the look here. And by the way, if you're unfamiliar with this layout and what I do with it and why it is so helpful, check out yesterday's free video right at the Simpler Trading YouTube channel called Stocks Futures Traders Need to Watch. It was yesterday's free video. And what I did is I walked through some of the corners of the market that I'm really interested in, and I walked through it using the multi-chart. And so with that in mind, yeah, I like XLP names, and Coke is one of, let's see, it looks like four. It's like one of four that we were very interested in. Let's see, XLP, Procter & Gamble, Coke, Philip Morris, and Clorox. I'm going to leave Estee Lauder off that list for now, but I do like the long position, but I would not use a stop below the 200 likely. That might be a little too generous. I would say there's two setups there, Kevin. One in the wave, and then maybe one closer to the 200. That way you could have a more reasonable stop for both of them. And then if you're in the Sector Secrets Mastery, we use a formula for risk, for position sizing, and I would apply that to Coke. All right, next up, can I share an example of some trades that I've made in my mastery? Lately, you do swing trades in ETF and in the afternoons. I have a 20-minute show here, Yurka. I don't have a ton of time to go through a lot of that, but let me give you a sample of what a typical day is like or a typical week is like, and I can talk to you about what kind of setups I look for depending on the day. This is our schedule in the mastery. So in the mornings, I look for day trading. Day trading has been, in terms of what kind of trades am I looking for? Day trading has been for sure the emphasis since June. What is the most common type, in terms of examples, what's the most common type of trading we're doing in the mastery right now? By far, it's a focus on the 5-minute time frame and the first hour after the bell. So we're focusing on 5-minute, 5-minute day trades, 5-minute day trades. And by 5-minute day trades, I mean a 5-minute time frame. And then I'm looking to trade between about 9:30 to 10:35. That's been our most common setup time and our most common strategy, focusing on the intraday. Well, I'll tell you the end of day has been far more sporadic because really the structure has been far more difficult. And I'd say, in fairness, while our win rate on the day trading is around 70%, mid-60 to 70%, right now my daily time frame is hovering right in the low 60s. So my win rate is not as high on the daily, hence we're doing far, far less of it. I'm very transparent about what we do in the room. And right now, it's really an emphasis on day trading. Hope that at least gives you an idea of what we do. All right, next up, Tim, do I have a site to tell how the sectors are weighted in each index, similar to ETFDB for stock weight in each sector? I use ETFDB. Yeah, I use ETFDB for that as well. So when you're in ETFDB and you click on the holdings, I believe there's another link that says, it's in there. It might be the holding analysis charts. Take a look at that holding analysis chart. It's one of the links on that side. Also, what are the thin white lines outside the wave of my chart? That is a beta. Well, it's not even beta anymore. Bot and I have been testing out an update to the wave and the grab that we have been using that's more oriented to volatility. So imagine if the wave, the 34 EMA on the high, the close and the low, were not simply just price, an exponential moving average, but now could factor in some volatility. And that's been something we've been testing for some time. And that's why you see that faint white line. Anytime I have an indicator that I release as a class or on its own, it goes through an extensive, usually close to a year, if not more, amount of testing before I even release it to members or the public in general. So we've been testing that for some time. Thanks for the question. All right, let's see, what else do we have here? Hang on, gang. Diamond asks, there are gaps on SPY. Okay. Yeah, and of course, gaps are going to be common on ETFs and ETFs of indices because the indices are nearly 24 hours. These SPY, QQQ, DIA are only 9:30 to 4. So there's going to be holes on the chart, of course. So there's a gap at 388 and 396. Do I think those will fill before we go to 350? So Diamond, you're asking me to tell the future? Not a clue, my friend. And anyone who answers that question for you, I'll tell you, and I mean this sincerely, is full of it. I have no idea. I really don't. What we can do, right? What we can do is ask ourselves, where is support and resistance? So rather than trying to predict or asking anybody to try and predict, which I think is just, it's a tough question to answer because it's unanswerable. What we can do is say, what do I want to do if we get to your level, 388, or we get to your level, the 396 and a half, or we get to 350? The more important question is, what do I want to do, right? Not what will we happen. So my answer to that is not where we're going to go. Nobody knows. But what would I do if we get there? And I couldn't even begin because, again, we're pushing that fortune telling, which I know they do on television, but you know they're there for entertainment, right? So I don't know. And the reason I don't know is I don't know what the structure is going to be if and when we do get there, because structure dictates strategy, which is all the more reason we can't get into fortune telling, because I don't know if we're going to be in an uptrend by the time we start heading towards, say, for example, 396 and a half. And the uptrend that I would be looking at would be on the S&P futures. So if we are in an uptrend on the S&P futures and I'm reaching that level, I'm not going to short it because the bullish structure would dictate I can't short. But if we're in chop, right, like we are right now, to your point, if we're in chop and we have an oversold level at, say, let's go back to that SPY chart. We have an oversold level at, say, 360. And again, I don't even know that we'll go to 350. My support's closer to 348, the low from 1013. So 348.11. But let's say we get down to that area you're talking about. If we're in chop, I would buy that, right? So I can only say we need to know what the structure would be. And then once we know that, then those price levels have meaning and maybe they're actionable, right? I hope that makes sense. Thanks for the question. All right, next up is Avi asks, Avi, I'm not even sure what symbol. STS? Hi, ST. All right, is the symbol STS that you want to look at? Green momentum, yellow rescore rejection, pre-market. Avi, I have no idea what to even make of that question. Gang, please, I do read them and everyone can see it on the screen. If someone can make heads or tails out of some of these, I am more than happy to answer. I don't know what you're asking me. Is this a general question? Green momentum, yellow. So a neutral market. Yeah, Avi, if you can give me an example or kind of explain, it's not processing at all. All right, CI, good dip yesterday, right at fib support. Yeah, CI had, let me show you what. Give me 1 second here, okay? CI, good dip yesterday. Fib support. Yeah, if I'm looking at fib support, Ben, here's what I would say. Look at the last few times in the green environment, and I love that you're looking for a dip buy. See that there? I would say let's focus on the lower end of the wave. So I'm looking at even back in here. Do you see, Ben, that almost every time we pull back into the wave, it's minimally been to the middle, if not the bottom line of the wave. So that nature of the pullbacks is telling us that even though this is for sure a nice move and higher, I love that you're using fib support because I think a secondary reason to find support is really important. So I like what you're doing there. Let's focus on the middle, if not lower end of the range, right? And then what we can do is focus on the long side, remembering that there's going to be a good bit of volatility, right? So I love that you're using that second reason to find whether or not there's support. Be careful on this one, though, Ben, because it does tend to be a little wild, but I like the overall direction. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Let's see. Next up, Jose asks, how do we get the setup instructions for the multi-chart? Do we need to subscribe to your Sector Secrets Mastery? Jose, it's not terribly difficult. This is just a flexible grid. I mean, I'll tell you what it is. It's a flexible grid on TOS. So, TOS, you can reshape all the charts on a layout. So this is just a reshaped layout where there's one big chart that I call the tide in the upper left corner. And then we have the smaller 11 charts that would represent the 11 stocks weighted in that ETF in the order of their weighting. So this, of course, would need, from time to time, at least 2 or 3 times a month, go back in, check the weighting, and then make sure it's reflecting the current composition of the ETF. That's the first thing. And then I have the grab, the wave, propulsion, Darvis. These are free tools on the chart, on each chart. And then I also have the, as you can see here, the trade flags. And these are the shortened trade flags that work really well for this. And all the individual tools that make up this layout, not this layout, but the individual tools are available in the futures room, the options room. And in my Sector Secrets Mastery, I actually do share this layout. You can put it together yourself. They're comprised of tools that we make free to members. And then for some traders, they don't like the busy 11. I get this could be a lot to look at. And so some say, Rag, I'd rather have fewer charts on here. So some folks will just arrange this differently. I would say one bit of advice is don't make it less than 6 charts. Right? Don't make a multi-chart like this less than 6. I like the 11. All right. So thanks for the question. Next up, Murph asks, should the ES1 and SPX chart look the same during regular? I mean, they should move pretty similarly. Yeah, Murph? Sure. Should the ES futures, for the most part, directionally, even scope-wise, look the same between 9:30 and 4? They're not always going to, but they should, for the most part, key off of what's going on in the ES. And you'll see most of the time they do. And I would throw the SPY in there as well. So ES is my touchstone market for the micro ES, for the SPY, and the SPX. So great question. And the simple answer is yes. Yeah. Okay. All right. So again, just like that, I am out of time. And I will see you all tomorrow, same time, same station. And until then, gang, let's be really cautious this week. We have a lot of hot zones that we are going to be dealing with. In the meanwhile, for those of you that are curious about some of the scanning that I'm doing right now, I get a lot of questions about Apple and Tesla and the NASDAQ. I dove into that in the free video yesterday. Futures traders need to watch. And that's yesterday's update over at the Simpler Trading YouTube channel. All right, gang, be good to each other. I will talk with you soon.